President Biden taking a bit of a victory lap over what he called July's outstanding jobs number, while acknowledging some Americans may not be feeling it with rising prices. So where do things stand? Gene Sperling is a senior advisor to the president. He joins us now. Gene, thanks a lot for joining us. You know, I think what made it even more suspenseful is late yesterday, the White House press secretary suggested the number was going to be 150,000. Did you guys take a peek at the wrong number?
There's no peaks. You know, I think there were people predicting that it would be, 250 to 150,000. But what we saw today was the big R, and that was resilience. Resilience in this labor market. Another 528,000. Extremely strong manufacturing growth. I mean, it really is something. There have been 3.3 million jobs created in the economy this year. Other than last year, that's the most in the first 7 months of our economy in the history of our country. So, that, of course, as the president said, it's not all rosy. People are still dealing with higher prices that are too high, even with gas prices coming down. But there is some comfort in the resilience of the job market, the historic number of people working, the historic number of jobs, and an unemployment rate that matches the lowest in the last 53 years. You
know, it's interesting, though, just last month, we finally recovered all the jobs that were lost at the beginning of the pandemic. As I go through it, there are some parts that bother me, and I'm wondering if you can help. Since May, Black Americans have lost 301,000 jobs. What's going on where this large segment of the population is not participating in this jobs boom?
Oh, boy, is that not the case. You know, it's interesting. At this time after the last crisis we had, Black unemployment was at 15.9%.
No, jobs, not unemployment, because the unemployment number, by the way, is skewed because hundreds of thousands of Black Americans have left the labor market, I guess because they can't find a job. And I'm curious as to why that's happening.
Look, that number can move around month by month, but the overall story has just been an enormously equitable recovery with significant gains in Black jobs for African Americans, for new small businesses for Black Americans. And again, the unemployment rate does reflect the fact that you actually saw a historic drop in the unemployment in 2021 and over the last year for African Americans. Hispanic Americans actually went down to 3.9% unemployment. So what's actually striking about this recovery is how equitable it has been.
It's not equitable if people are leaving the labor force. Listen, I know.
No, I think
if someone leaves the labor force and the unemployment number goes down, I don't see how that's good. Because theoretically, 4.5 million people could leave the labor force, and you can say, guess where the unemployment number is? Zero. And we should celebrate. But should we?
And the key word you said there was theoretically. If you actually look at prime age labor force participation, with age 25 to 54, it went up this month. It is actually at about the same rate that it was in 2019, higher in 2018. So I do agree with you on one thing. I think that there's still further we can go on labor force participation. But when you look at prime age workers, it's been a strong recovery up this month and about exactly where we were in 2019.
We're back to where we lost, and I think that is something to celebrate. But I do worry because the mainstream media will never talk about Black people in America suffering when the Democrats in the White House. So I thought I would take this opportunity to ask why in the last few months we haven't participated. Let me ask you about the household survey, because it wasn't as good.
I guess I'm just not agreeing with that, with your premise
these are
there.
BLS numbers.
I think African-American workers have benefited enormously in this recovery.
They're not mine. Household survey, this is intriguing. Full-time workers went down 71,000. Part-time went up 380,000. Multiple workers went up 92,000 to the most ever. You know, we heard from Uber earlier this week, and they have 76% increase in their drivers. So there's no doubt people are having to do these side hustles, multiple jobs. What's going on here with it? Again, it feels like a bifurcated recovery.
You know, I just don't agree with any of your premises here. For example, if you look at what scholars at Berkeley and Professor Dubé at University of Massachusetts Amherst have found, they've actually found that in the bottom 30 or 50% of the workforce, you're actually seeing real income gains, even with the too high, unacceptably high inflation that we have.
Right. Teenagers have had the most, and even high school. I'm talking about the household survey. We're talking about two different things. Let me ask you then, since we're on income.
But,
great
I will
wage
tell
numbers.
you, if you want to get into household versus payroll, the payroll survey is, the household is a sample. The payroll survey actually looks at, well over 100,000 firms that focus on a significant chunk of the American payroll. And it has shown consistently high job growth and high job growth across the board for low income, African American, Hispanic, white workers, regardless of your race or zip code or gender. This has been a very, very strong jobs recovery. Now, we can talk all we want about, and I will agree, nobody likes the fact that that we have not escaped the global inflation that is out there or the ramifications of the war in Ukraine. But when it comes to the job market, I think you're seeing strength across the board.
Let's talk about wages. They were revised higher. They came in better than expected today. But again, and you just brought it up, this inflation, this dark cloud of inflation, like the sword of Damocles, real wages have been down every single month since the COVID relief bill was passed at $1.9 trillion. Now, I know there's a debate on whether or not that exacerbated this, that sparked this inflation problem, but it is an interesting coincidence that since then, despite getting a bigger paycheck, when people go in the store, they walk out with fewer bags. What do you tell Americans?
Well, that's why this president says every day that reducing prices and costs for families is his #1 priority, because we get it. It is. I mean, there are studies that show that for lower income workers, that many of them do actually have real income gains, even including inflation. But look, there's no question. There's too many Americans in the situation that you've mentioned, that they are working. Many of them have been able to move to better jobs. Many of them are seeing their nominal wages going up. But, they're giving away too much of that wage gain at the grocery line and the gas pump. It's why we're glad to see gas prices down over 90 cents. We're glad to see it under $4 in 22 states right now. But look, when it comes to the fact that we have not escaped the global inflation, that it's hitting Americans at the gas pump and the grocery line, and that's a challenge. Still said, it is good that we have so many Americans working, so many people on the job, more jobs in the U.S. economy right now than ever in the history of our country. That's a good thing.
I agree 1,000,000%. I want more. That's why participation is the first thing I look at. And when I see it go down month after month in a strong jobs market, I think we should have more jobs, and I think we should have more people born in this country so we can have more jobs and we can stay on top. Let's get back to the inflation thing for 1 second, Gene.
Just for the record,
Gene,
labor force participation for those 24 to 54, what's called prime age, did tick up. So it did for older workers too. So I just don't want I just want to paint a balanced picture here. We would like to see higher labor force participation.
If you want to paint a balanced picture, labor force participation, period, went down again for the second month in a row, and it's significantly lower than it was in February 2020. That's fine. The inflation problem. The Federal Reserve is out this week, big time. I mean, starting over the weekend, Neil Kashkari, he pushed back against Jay Powell's notion of a neutral. Then you had, what was crazy about it, the doves were hawks, right? I mean, they went out there. Mary Daly made some unfortunate comments. What is the White House, is the White House concerned that the Fed is going to go too far? We know that maybe that's the only way we can bring inflation down. Do you want to see this Fed become very, very aggressive in bringing down inflation so that people can actually enjoy these nominal gains?
I think what my answer is. It's the same answer every single member of President Biden's economic team is going to give, which is that we respect the independence of the Fed. It is not our job to critique what they do. We want them to have the independence to do what they think is best to tamp down inflation, even if those are some tough choices. I will say we've had at least 5 presidents over the last 50 years who've chosen to berate the Fed at times of high inflation when they're making tough choices. We're making the decision that we want to respect their independence. So I will come back someday when I'm no longer at the White House, and I will give you all my thoughts. But right now, that's not an area that we enter into.
Let me ask you about the spending bill. Again, we've quibbled over numbers that are in the BLS report, so I don't want to debate on the inflation front. I do want to ask, though, about historically when you've had Democrats and fellow, presidents who said you don't raise taxes in this sort of environment. We know the names, and what do you make of that? A lot of folks in your own party believe this is another mistake, like the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package.
First of all, really nobody's rate is being raised. What you're trying to do is make sure that people are paying a basic minimum. I mean, all the corporate tax provision here does, it says, is that if you report over $1 billion to your shareholders, to the market, if you report over $1 billion in profits to your shareholders in the market, you should pay at least 15%. I think most people who hear that, who are paying Social Security and Medicare payroll taxes, et cetera, would say, why only 15%? Well, it's at least a basic minimum, so you don't have the situation President Biden talks about repeatedly of 55 major Fortune 500 companies with major profits paying 0 taxes. So I think there is not going to be much opposition among Democrat or Republican voters to making sure that companies that are reporting over $1 billion in profits have a basic minimum of 15%.
Well, Senator Sinema has probably had some issues with it. We'll see what the final version is, but I got to go. But here's the thing. You remember the AMT tax, the alternative minimum tax, there was an op-ed, I think it was in Washington Post. 150 American families not paying taxes. Let's go get them. And, of course, maybe 20 years later, 40 million people slammed by the same tax. These things can be a slippery slope, right? They can be a slippery slope, a Pandora's box.
If you want to talk about, let's go. We'll come back and go into the details of the tax provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act. And what you will see is tax incentives for tens of millions of Americans to get lower energy and get a tax incentive to do it and to buy a whole set of consumer products. So let's talk. We'll talk about that, but I think it's going to be more a talk about middle class tax relief and making sure large corporations are at least paying a basic minimum and not getting away scot-free.
Gene Sperling, you've been fantastic. I appreciate you, answering the questions, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Likewise.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.